Okay, this regular meeting is being, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The regular meeting of the Arts Commission will now begin. This meeting is being recorded in accordance with the open meeting law.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Joan Vorderbruggen and I am the chair of the Minneapolis Arts Commission. Before we begin, I'd like to note that this meeting includes the remote participation of members as authorized under Minnesota Statute Section 13D.021. Due to the declared local health pandemic, I will now call this meeting to order and ask the clerk to call the roll so that we can verify the presence of a quorum.
Thank you. Commissioner Aylesworth?
Present.
Commissioner Bedbury? Commissioner Brinkman?
Present.
Commissioner Silky Jones? Commissioner Mansfield?
Present.
Commissioner Midag? Commissioner Mebius?
Present.
Commissioner Smith? I'll come back.
Yeah,
He's joining.
I just readmitted David.
I just saw that. Commissioner Smith? Commissioner Swinton?
Present.
Commissioner Thompson?
Present.
Commissioner Vorderbruggen?
Present.
And Commissioner Smith?
David, you are muted.
Let's see, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, hi.
All right, we have a quorum. We have 8. Thank you.
Commissioner Bedbury is also here. Sorry, I missed my name.
All right. Who's sharing their screen right now? Oh, David, you are sharing your screen right now, just so you know.
I hit a lot of buttons to get the unmute, I guess.
That's okay.
Presented.
We're glad you're here. I might be able to, there you go. Okay. All right. Thank you. With that, we will proceed to our agenda, a copy of which was posted for public access to the city's legislative information management system, which is available at lims.minneapolismn.gov. Thanks. Okay, we will need an adoption of the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve this evening's agenda? It should be in the chat. If not, maybe Tina, you can drop it in. Can anyone motion to?
So moved.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
I can second that.
Okay, all in favor? I guess we have to call the roll on this too. I think we have to do this a couple of times. Hello, Angela. We're doing the Robert's Rulesness of our start of our meeting, just so you're aware. Thanks for joining us. Okay, so we have a second. We have a motion and a second, and then call the roll. Tina, is that?
Yes. Commissioner Aylesworth?
Aye.
Commissioner Bedbury?
Aye.
Commissioner Brinkman?
Aye.
Commissioner Silky Jones? Commissioner Mansfield?
Aye.
Commissioner Mebius?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Swinton?
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson?
Aye.
And Commissioner Vorderbruggen.
Aye, so moved. Next, the acceptance of the September 22nd, 2021 Minneapolis Arts Commission minutes. I have a motion to approve those. Any edits or any comments about those? Otherwise, motion to approve.
So moved to approve.
Thank you. I need a second.
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 Thank you. Tina, do you mind calling the roll?
Yes. Commissioner Aylesworth?
Aye.
Commissioner Bedbury?
Aye.
Commissioner Brinkman?
Aye.
Commissioner Mansfield?
Aye.
Commissioner Mebius?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Swinton?
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson?
Aye.
And Commissioner Vorderbruggen.
Aye, so moved. Thank you. Wouldn't it be nice to combine all three of those somehow? Maybe we'll have to think about doing that. But at any rate, thank you for helping us get through the business of starting the meeting. And with that, we are going to move to introductions. And we do have an amazing guest with us this evening, who is item number 5 after we kind of introduce ourselves. So I think it would be awesome if we kind of do the typical introductions, but if there's anything that you wish to share with your fellow commissioners briefly, or anything that you wish to share with the guest or staff, I would say just keep it brief, but let's popcorn around like we do, if that's cool. And does anyone want to volunteer to start?
I'll start. I don't care. You're gonna have to go anyway, so you might as well get it over with. That's what I said. Sorry.
Thank you.
It's been a long day. I don't talk to people very much. My name is Mandy Bedbury. I represent Ward 10 on the Minneapolis Arts Commission. I am an actor in the city, and I teach emotional intelligence using improv techniques to corporate America, well, and educators as well. So, yeah, and I pass it to, I don't know. Let's do Crystal. Commissioner Brinkman.
My name is Crystal Brinkman, she, her, hers. Thanks, Mandy. And happy to be here, excited for what we have in store, and I'm passing it to Lucy.
Hey, everybody. Lucy Thompson, Ward 10 representative. I'm a layperson, not artist, layperson. My background's in city planning and urban design. And Angela, I'm really happy to have you here because I went to see your piece last week and was just it's so beautiful and so amazing. So to know that you were going to be with us today, I'm really excited. It's great to see you, and I'm really excited to hear what you have to tell us. So thanks for being here. I'll pass it to Lana.
Thanks, Lucy. Hi, Commissioner Lana Aylesworth. I represent Ward 10. No, I don't. I represent Ward 11. And I was remembering that I needed to say she, her, hers, and I didn't say that. So there you have it. I serve on the board as an arts layperson, and I am a strong arts enthusiast with an emphasis on theater. I, too, strolled over to the Walker Sculpture Garden last week on a rainy day, kind of like today, so I thought it was really fun to see it in motion in the rain with some puddles, and it's a beautiful new addition, so I'm excited to hear about that, too. I'd like to tag Commissioner Mansfield, please.
Hi, Mari Mansfield, she, her, hers. I'm an artist on the commission. I represent Ward 8. I'm also an American Indian education tutor for the Elk River School District. And I will pass it over to Jack.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jack Mabius. I represent Ward 12. I am administrative help on the council, or on the commission rather, and I work at the University of Minnesota at the Institute on the Environment as a project manager and executive administrator. And let me see if I can't see who's participating. I will pass it over to Jeff.
Hello, everyone. Sorry about my lighting. I'm working on it. It look like I'm in like Halloween mood, but I'm Jeff Swinton, and I'm from Ward 7, and I am a lay participant and arts enthusiast. And I, like two of my other commissioners, also visited the Walker and was like, wow, this is great. So I'm super excited about hearing Angela today. And I will pass it to Joan.
Thank you. Joan Vorderbruggen, she, her, hers. Yeah, I want to thank the Access Group for making sure that we have guest speakers when we meet. And I know that, and just thank Angela, because I know you are a rocket right now and there's a lot going on in your world. So I'm feeling so much gratitude for everyone's time in the evening time after a long rainy day. I'm excited about the conversations we're going to have, the stuff we're going to learn, and where we're headed. So I just feeling a really big sense of gratitude for everyone who's here. And let's see, did we pass it to David?
David Smith, Ward 1. I'm a layperson on the commission as well. His. Speaking of the walker, I was also there. I didn't get out to the sculpture garden, but I went to the opening of the Julie Moretu exhibit. I thought it was pretty extraordinary. Some really huge scale artworks. I would advise everybody to go check that out when you can. And then I guess you can make a trip outside as well. See Angela's. Let's see, who else are we down to?
Are there any commissioners that have not introduced themselves yet that we missed? All right, let's move on to staff.
I guess I'll tag Mary then.
Sorry, I'm muted. Mary Altman, I'm muted, she, her, hers. I'm so glad Angela's here. I have had the privilege of working with Angela a couple of times. I have not been to the walker yet. I'm saving it for a special day and an outing with a special friend, but I'm so excited Angela's here tonight.
Thank you. Tina, would you like to go?
Sure. Hello. Good evening. Tina Beach. I work in CPED with Mary Altman, and I haven't been to the walker in a while, so I should probably go check it out. Sounds like it's a wonderful exhibit. So looking forward to the conversation tonight. Welcome, Angela.
All right. Did we get everybody? Did we miss anybody? Okay, I have called on Commissioner Brinkman to give you a little bit of an introduction, Angela, although it seems as if a lot of people are quite familiar with what you're doing. But if you don't mind, Crystal, to just say a few words before we give Angela a chance to introduce.
Yeah, well, I'm really excited to have Angela Two Stars with us, who is not only an accomplished artist, and many of us, I too, made it to the sculpture garden a couple times in the last week, and yeah, definitely highly recommend spending some time with Angela's piece. But is also the director of All My Relations Gallery, located on Franklin Avenue. So thank you so much for being here, Angela, and just kind of updating us on what's going on with All My Relations, and then anything you might want to add just as a working artist in the city would be amazing. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, everybody, for that warm welcome. Goodness. I just wanted to say, I feel like I should be in like a Cara Romero photograph. Look at my background. I'm just all feeling super formal, like I should be in one of her photographs. So like, I could see why Robert likes this backdrop when he does his meetings. So, well, it's so nice to hear so many people have had a chance to go see my sculpture at the Walker. That was, you know, a nail biter as installation goes with public art, you know, always, you know, servants to the weather, and, you know, in COVID time, that as well, you know, worker shortages and things like that. So I'm glad it all came to fruition, and it was a really great opening reception. My family and my culture were very much on display, and I think that was quite a gift, you know, to Minneapolis. I think as a Dakota artist, you know, for me, you know, I came to Minnesota after, you know, being, you know, having my ancestors being in exile for over 150 years and basically coming home. And it's because of the Bede-Makaska Public Art Project is how I returned to my, you know, ancestral homeland. So that's really exciting. And I've really connected, you know, with the community, with the arts, and, you know, yeah, kind of planting my roots. So it's good to be home. So yeah, I'm the director of All My Relations Arts. We are located in the American Indian Cultural Corridor on Franklin Avenue. We're a project of the Native American Community Development Institute. So my job is to uplift and highlight contemporary Native American artists. And our gallery is a cultural destination. And it's also, you know, for me, it's just been this place that really has a lot of opportunity to offer support and advocacy for Native artists. I myself am like a product of NACD, you know. I exhibited here. This was my very first gallery space that I exhibited as a professional artist, you know, I was still in school. And when I came here, I really had a lot of support. You know, I traveled from Michigan to come to the opening reception because your first exhibition you ever get into, you're like, oh my God, you know, so I drove 9 hours to come to the opening reception. Yeah, and I showed up like an hour early, and the NACD staff just let me hang out in their office, you know, and shared some opportunities that they knew of, some upcoming like residencies, because I was, you know, soon to be graduated, and they invited me back to be part of an artist panel. So I was on this panel with Gordon Coons and Choling Taha, Deani Whitehawk, who's just, you know, been such a inspiration to me in my career. You know, she's just phenomenal. And to be able to be in conversation with these, you know, pretty established, experienced artists, and here I was like the newbie, like, how do you guys do it? You know? So that then translated into me being invited to curate an exhibition, and it's so incredible that, you know, they had a national list of artists that they could think of to curate this exhibition, and my name got, you know, came to the top of their list. And at that time in my life, I was thinking, like, how do you get into curating? Like, I had no idea how to even broach that, you know, process. I was living out in Michigan and didn't have, you know, kind of the same level or network. And so they asked, and I said yes. And then they said, okay, the theme is missing and murdered Indigenous women. So that, you know, was a big bite as a first-time curator to take such a heavy topic. And, you know, for me, having personal experience with that shaped the way that curation and that exhibition looked. And it just became such an impactful exhibition. The artists were just phenomenal in the works that they created, and in their vulnerability and their courage to share, you know, really deeply personal stories. And for me as a curator, because I know, like, I shared my story with the artists, you know, my grandmother being kidnapped and murdered when I was 9, and how that impacted me and how my family experienced that whole time in life. And so I shared that with the artists, because for Indigenous artists, we all have a story, you know, and it's an experience that everybody can relate to or has their own. And so for me to share my story with these artists that I was asking to share such deeply personal work, I wanted them to know, like, I get it, I understand, I know where you're coming from, I've been there too, your work is safe with me. And my job in curating that show was probably atypical from a curator, and I wouldn't know because I was a first-time curator. But, you know, I made it a point to connect with every single artist and talk with them about how they felt about the topic and make sure they were feeling supported, because it was very, you know, re-triggering a lot of trauma. And a lot of our audience that came into that exhibition didn't have the same experience as I did, where I had time to process the work. I had time to unpackage the work and, you know, kind of determine where it was going to go in the gallery. The audience coming in was just hit it with it all at once. It's like wham, you know, and it's a very emotional, traumatic topic that continues to impact our community and, you know, Native country. So I guess, like, for me, like, those types of themes, and I think even my first exhibition when I took over as director of all my relations arts was a celebration of George Morrison's work and his experience as a Native artist, and how he wasn't kind of respected in the same level as his contemporaries at the time, and how he was, like, deemed, like, not Native enough, you know, for the contemporary art world, and also not Native enough for the Native art world. You know, he wasn't making art that was deemed Native art, and it was really pushing that notion of, like, what the audience's stereotypical view of Native art looks like. And that's an ongoing theme, you know, for Native artists. I feel even in my Walker sculpture, I had many people telling me like, you should put the medicine wheels colors in it because it doesn't look Native, you know. And I was like, well, it's Native because I made it, you know. And there's the 4 directions in it, so there's this slight node to our culture. And I mean, Jesus, got language all over it, so it's pretty Native. But it's always pushing, you know, kind of what that consideration of Native art is supposed to look like. That's not the only thing that inspires me as an artist, you know, like I'm an artist, you know, first and foremost. And so all of my work has some part of my identity as a Native American, you know, in it, but it's not all feathers and teepees, you know. I have a range. So, yeah, and some of those conversations can be challenging, like in terms of the artwork that, you know, the artists that I support, the work that they make, because our history as Native Americans is hard. It's a hard history. It's ugly. It's not mainstream knowledge. A lot of people that go through the US education system get taught of Native Americans from a pre-1900 context and don't ever get taught of Native Americans in a contemporary, thriving, you know, environment, you know, and they end up in college sitting next to a Native American in their classroom and they're like, oh, you're still here, you know. So that's why we have the big old "we are still here," you know, kind of theme and a lot of work, because that's part of that perpetuation of, you know, Native stereotypes and that romanticized notion of Native Americans and teepees. And you know, we're just really seeing a lot of just amplified voices, like in the Native American community, like, you know, in TV representation. And those things are so important, you know, like Reservation Dogs. I mean, that show is awesome. And the humor in it, like, we totally get, you know, and like, I don't know any Native American that doesn't like that show, you know. It's so much to what we've all grown up with and experienced. And the humor, you know, is like, there's so much humor in our community and in our people and our culture. And it's part of how we heal from so much of the atrocities that have been inflicted on us, not on us, but, you know, like our ancestors, but we do carry that trauma. I know that specifically from my work in language. As I've incorporated Dakota language into my artwork, I've come to, especially moving to Minnesota, this realization that I have historical trauma that exists within me, and it's come out in my language journey. When I first moved to Minnesota, I had more access to Dakota speakers, and yet when someone would say something to me in Dakota, it would be like a brick wall went up in my head, and I was like, what the heck is this? Like, I literally can't hear this person speaking Dakota. Like, I'm this artist incorporating Dakota in my work. Like, what the heck? And it's because of the trauma. You know, both of my grandmothers were victims of boarding school, you know, abuse, and that trauma does live in me. And I've had to overcome and push through that feeling, that shame of not knowing how to speak my language. It's very emotional. It's very vulnerable because our language is so much a part of our identity. So, you know, that Walker piece was really, it was just huge, you know, to go to elders and share my work and have to admit, like, I'm a basic speaker. I couldn't hold a conversation with you. I know how to count to 10. I know some animals and, you know, a little basic phrases, you know, that I speak. I speak more now than I ever did as a child, but still I'm really basic. And to talk to these fluent speakers and share this tribute to the language when I'm so kind of just, you know, bottom feeder language speaker, it was really vulnerable, and I had to really push through, you know, just the awareness and where I was at with my language. So, and I guess, you know, even that process of sharing that content within my applications, you know, that's one thing, like when we talk about historical trauma or intergenerational trauma, for me, like, that's not things that we're doing to make a grant sound good. Like, intergenerational trauma is real. I live it. You know, I still deal with it. You know, even that whole Walker experience, there was intergenerational trauma that I was going through. I don't have a good relationship with my dad because of, you know, addiction. And that exists in how I operate in my life as an artist. And it's not just me saying, oh, intergenerational trauma. It's like, this is what it looks like, and this is how it feels, and it's real. So that's one thing, to share that with people, you know, rather than just being kind of like these, I guess, like trigger words or something to speak of our culture, you know. I mean, it's not all negative. And we're a lot more vocal. And to me, I kind of, I guess in my experience as an artist and advocating for the artists that I work with, it's trying to break down kind of the expectations, trying to break down the experience, because some of these spaces that we operate in are not safe for us. I don't know how many meetings that I've left and cried because it triggers my trauma, or it's really just hard to have to continue having these conversations to explain, you know, my like Indian 101, or listening in on conversations like that. Like, after a while, I start to get this gross feeling in my stomach, and it's kind of makes my heart hurt, you know, because that's that trauma, how it lives and shows up in me today. And it's also really advocating for institutions to stand by our side, you know, and be in the work with us and not make us do the work for them. Like, that's been a big thing of like, don't make me have to teach you about boarding school experience, or have to like write your land acknowledgement for you, or, you know, like do these things, or have things be done just at face value. You know, it's what else are you doing? You know, do you have Native people on your staff, on your board, on your, you know, like, how are you doing more than just front facing land acknowledgement work or something like that? You know, like, some of the spaces, yeah, it's just real. Like, for artists of color, some of the spaces that we work in aren't safe for us, and it's something that we have to navigate. Oftentimes there's not support. You run into white privilege. And for me, it's trying to figure out, like, okay, what do you do when you do hit that white privilege? Where can I go? Like, I'm gonna hit it, and then what do I do? Where do I go after that happens? Because it happens. And for me, it's kind of also a part of how emotional labor is a real thing. You know, like, emotional labor, it is an actual labor that artists of color face and have to deal with, and that deserves a compensation that a white male artist doesn't have to deal with. So those are things that I'm kind of pushing into, like, my spaces and how I operate. And I find it so much easier to advocate for the artists that I work for than I do for myself. I mean, when I got my AMRA hat on, I'm just like a bulldog in these rooms, you know, for my artists, and I will go to bat for them, you know, and get them what they need and advocate for them. But then when it's me, I'm just kind of like, hey, do you think maybe, could you, you know, and it's just, I'm trying to be like more stronger for myself. You know, I really utilize my family, because they're the ones, and I should say my husband is the one that have to cry on his shoulder so many times, and he's got to see me in this experience. Like, he might be one to talk to. What does Angela go through? Because I'm so close to it, you know, I'm so in front of it, and so it's so important to me, and so it's just, my heart's so big that I get really emotional, like, and really sensitive. And I think a lot of artists are sensitive anyway, but yeah, some of these spaces, you know, like working in public art, I would just say, like, not picking on the city, but like, I'm not a city employee, so like, coming in as an artist, like, that's a little bit like, oh, how do you do what do you do here? Same with like the Walker, like these other places where I'm still, you know, I feel really still emerging, and so, like, I don't know how to navigate this, you know. There's a lot of work that it takes to be an artist, and, you know, there's an administrative side, there's a business side, there's financial side, just permitting and technical stuff and things that I do not enjoy. But it's just part of the business of an artist, rather than just being the creative and trying to navigate all the ins and outs of the business that is being an artist is really not appreciated enough or valued by the general public. They just think, oh, could you make this for me? It'll be good exposure. I think that's the difference for me. Like when I was getting speakers coming to school and stuff like that, they talk about their network and places they exhibited. And me as I had family and 3 kids, I'd be like, yeah, but how do you pay your bills? So it's a business, and I'm trying to kind of break some barriers and advocate for change, and it's systems change. We got to start somewhere. So I'm not sure how long I'm supposed to present. I'm not sure if, I hope what I'm saying is helpful, but I kind of also want to have people be able to ask questions, because I feel like that can help with some specific learning, or might help guide things more as well. Can we do that?
Yes, of course. Thank you so much. And yes, I think you hit on a lot of really important things for us to be both aware of and learn more about and consider. Like just becoming more culturally sophisticated. And it makes me think I want to just kind of also recognize Commissioner Mansfield, who I think has brought so much advocacy for not just Native American artists that are doing work in the city, but artists from communities of color in general who are, and we're looking at things a little differently and trying to better understand how do we vet cultural resources and thought leadership, and how is that proper? What is the proper way to support artists? So I just think it's a really important conversation, as well as how can the city be a better partner and really understand the issues that you bring up, like emotional labor. And I mean, these are really important things that we have to consider. And as a commission, this is very valuable information that we should think about. How do we carry that and advocate for that and find the systems change within our own processes to be inclusive, welcoming, supportive body to our arts community. So not to go off on a tangent, Angela, but I just do think that it's a very, very important aspect of this commission. So I'm curious, does anybody have any questions for Angela or any comments? I see Commissioner Thompson's hands up.
Thank you. Let me get that hand out of the way here, so that bugs me. So a couple questions. One is kind of an easy one. Is the gallery reopened yet, or when will it be opened? And what shows can we look forward to seeing there? I'm also wondering about where your name comes from. Would you mind explaining where the 2 stars part of your name comes? I'm really interested in that.
Thank you. Yeah, we actually are open. All My Relations just hosted an opening reception on Thursday for Biskabiang, which is Ojibwe for returning to ourselves. It's part of the curator is Julian Enright, who is Emerging Curator Institute Fellow. And so they selected our space to host this exhibition about Indigenous futurism. We're actually featured in the New York Times today. It was really exciting. So yeah, the concept of the show is based on Indigenous futurisms by reconnecting with decolonizing practices and reconnecting with language and culture, and things that were so much was done to try to eliminate that from our like genocide and it was through food, eliminating the buffalo, through education of boarding school, which I don't even call it a boarding school. I call it more of a internment camp for kids. So yeah, that it's interesting that all of these ways of knowing and all of these ways that Native people existed prior to colonization is what we're trying to get back to, you know. And it's also something that I think helps us as we go into a healthy future, sustainable future for our planet, you know, is kind of adopting that mentality, you know, Mitaku Ye Wasin, which is all my relations, and that is not just us as people and like, here's my cousin, it's the water is a relative, you know, the land is a relative, and having that level of respect and treating, you know, the elements as a relative would really change how we operate and exist in our world. So that's going on until December 11th. And my last name, 2 stars, is Wichachpinpa. My great-great-grandfather, his name was Solomon 2 stars. Well, before that, you know, the work at Bedemakaska was honoring Cloud Man, which is Machpiawi Chasta. He was Solomon 2 stars' dad. And when that's all I knew. I was like, I know Cloud Man, that's all we knew. We knew that Solomon 2 stars' dad's name was Cloud Man, and that was it. And so when the Bedemakaska Public Art Project came available, and I was like, hey, I know who that is. And I applied for the opportunity, and it was really like, I don't even care, like, there's no way I'm gonna get selected. But still, I have a source of being able to learn more about where I come from. How cool is that? And so Solomon 2 stars was part of, he was in the internment camp at Fort Snelling. And then after they were exiled from Minnesota, he was moved to the reservation, the Lake Traverse Reservation. And as they were getting like registered on the reservation, you know, there's like the white person writing everybody down. And all these natives spoke Dakota, you know, they didn't speak English. So when they said, what's your name? And they said, oh, you know, Mato Ohitika, you know, the white person registering was like, well, I don't know what that means. Your name is John White. And so they turned into John White, and then now all their descendants have the last name White. And that's why you see a lot of like Browns, Whites. Then there's some French ones too, and it was like LaFontaine, you know. So when my great-great-grandfather went to register, you know, they asked him what your name was, and he said, Wichachbinupa. And they were about to make up a name for him, and he said, wait, I speak English, because the missionaries had taught him English, you know. And so he said, Wichachbinupa is 2 stars. And then they said, okay, well, you need a first name, you need a Christian name. And so he picked Solomon out of the Bible because Solomon was wise. And so that's my family story of how we got our last name, 2 stars. I used to hate it when I was a kid, because you know, elementary school boys. Ugh. But when my dad told me the story of how we got our name, I was like, our name's cool. So I actually have 2 names, because I have my married name, and then I kept my maiden name as professional name. So
Thank you. Thank you.
Commissioner Swinton? Yeah.
Hello. Thank you so much for joining us. If you care to share, can you tell us how you thought through, you know, working with the walker and just making that decision, and you know, as you kind of navigated through the walker and with your elders, if given the walker's history?
yes, sorry, I had to charge my computer.
No problem.
Well, the very first step was the fact that the Walker invited an Indigenous Arts Selection Committee. So that was the first step of why I even applied, is because I knew that my application would be viewed by this selection committee that would understand my proposal. I wouldn't have to kind of go into the deep details about boarding school or trauma, you know. And I guess working with them at first, it was like an elephant in the room, you know, because I had not thought about the other artwork while I was designing, while I was applying, while I was, you know, when I went from the initial application to the semifinalist application. It was only after I was selected where I realized my work is going to be connected to this other thing that I didn't want to be a part of. Like, it had no bearing on my design. I hadn't thought of it at all. But it was just this recognition and an acknowledgement. And I remember distinctly thinking, like, I have a responsibility of helping to heal people that had been hurt by that other piece. And so for me as an artist, like, I really took that as a responsibility. Like, well, I'm glad it's me, because, you know, that is my people that were hurt. You know, those were my relatives that were hurt. And my work is about healing. It's about language and how we heal through our language. But it was still this elephant in the room. And when I went through the site, I asked where was scaffold, because I don't want to go there. I want to stay far away from that, as, you know, in every way, shape, or form. And so I picked a different site. But once we started developing the piece, and, you know, for ADA compliance and all these things, my piece grew to where it didn't fit in that site anymore. And so I had to put the brakes on it and reevaluate. And at the same time, I was coming to a resolution about being connected to the past controversy. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to go where that piece was. I'm going to reclaim the land and reclaim the narrative, because I don't want this to continue to be a conversation about scaffold and about that controversy. And this is an opportunity for the walker and me to show what healthy resolution can look like, you know, and I think that's what we were able to accomplish. And I had, you know, the support, you know, from the chief curator, and the executive director, you know, that really helped the piece get to be to what it is now, and to be the something to celebrate. That's, you know, I guess that'd be a success.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm. Are there any other questions or comments or anything to share? Okay, well, with that, I think I speak on behalf of all of us how much we appreciate the time you've taken this evening to be with us and to provide a lot of storytelling about your work and the work you're doing in all relations. So yeah, I see everybody waving and saying thank you so much, Angela, and I hope that we will see you again soon.
Thank you guys for having me. And if you have any questions, you're always welcome to email me.
Thank you, Angela.
Good night. Bye.
Thank you.
Yay, that was delightful. Thanks, everyone. I know we maybe took a little bit more time than we normally would with our guest speaker, but that was certainly worth every minute. So I hope if we go over just a little bit, my apologies, and we'll try to be as efficient as possible with the rest of the agenda. That sounds okay. All right. Okay, so the next item then is our Poet Laureate work group. Commissioner Ailes, you're going to just kind of give us a little summary. I know that we included the work plan that was in the attachments that you were sent for this evening, so I hope everyone had a chance to just at least give that a peek. But yeah, take it away and give us, if you want to just give us a quick summary, and then we're going to make a vote.
Sure thing. Thanks, everyone. That's a really tough act to follow. It was very inspirational and uplifting, and I loved hearing from Angela. And, you know, just at the cusp of that, I'm excited for what a Poet Laureate and Youth Poet Laureate position could look like. That level of inspiration to come in other literary arts, too. So thank you for taking the time to check out the document that we shared. We have a few other overviews as well that we're working on. I just want to say, first of all, that these are all in draft forms, and that they're on the general tab on our teams under files, and I created a new folder if you want to do a deeper dive at any time. I dropped that in the chat too. Sometimes when you click on it in the chat, it does not link Teams, but if you do copy and paste it in another browser, I've had success that way. So do with it what you will. But a big kudos and thank you to Jack, who is our admin for this project. He's really done a tremendous job. I can't even tell you how we have conversations. We sent him research, and then regurgitated back is this beautiful documentation. So really want to celebrate that, as well as the thought leadership of Mandy and Ahava on this project. So we've been working on this now since the inception of hey, should we do a Poet Laureate project, to who wants to work on it, through a little bit of research on peer cities with emphasis on those that had youth Poet Laureate initiatives intact as well. And now we're kind of at the phase where we're ready to open it up to community leaders and some of their thoughts to incorporate as we polish this draft. So that's the next step. This month we met with Councilmember Fletcher and Council Vice President Jenkins one more time, just to start forging a timeline as we move forward. Tomorrow I'm going to be meeting with Mary and city leadership on the communications team to help polish what that will look like for the months ahead. And we're also soliciting responses from community members. One of the documents says everybody that we've reached out to, but we welcome any more comments or feedbacks, any other ideas of who should be looped in at this point. And we're also hoping that those community members will have ideas of their own and new people to bring to the table. So that's where our work currently stands with the dreaming through the community so that we can help get a polished draft to bring to fruition. And from there, it's going to be, more specifics with the budgeting process and getting people to share that vision statement with council members probably mid-November, in a meeting that would just do the same 2-minute overview in Teams of why our city needs a Poet Laureate. Beyond the obvious of every other major city, a lot of them even have youth Poet Laureates at this point. So it's high time here, and we're excited for the opportunity to push it forward. It's something that's been in the mix for a while, and we're really hopeful we can soldier it through to fruition. So if you had a chance to review that draft, you'll see that the idea would be that we would, have an announcement for the new year in January. We would put up an application and nomination process that we would collect responses by March. That would give about a month for a selection panel to review, and then an announcement in April would be timed with National Poetry Month. So that's our dream, if we can make it happen that quick. We're always like crossing our fingers on that. But I would love to welcome any comments from other commissioners too. If you have feedback, if there's something that you don't see in our initial draft, it is a draft, it's a working document that we would love your input on. So, feel free, you can email me, or I guess you could email Jack too, as he's working on admin. So whomever you're most comfortable reaching out to, we'd love and welcome feedback. On that note, I see Lucy, you have a hand up, go for it.
I do, thank you. Just wondering, is it expected or desired person be a poet themselves? It wasn't specifically said, it doesn't specifically say that in there, or is there an expectation that they will produce poetry as part of this as well?
It's a great question. Yeah, one of the ideas that we're going to be workshopping with community leaders is some of the specific job duties, of which many other cities have emulated things like, we looked closely at the Philadelphia program at Colquhoun's recommendation. And so some of the ideas that they had reflected there was that the Poet Laureate would publish alongside one of a partner organization would help publish a new work within the range of their term. So okay. Yeah, I think that when we flesh out those details and job duties, that will be more clearly outlined. But thank you for that, for noting that we should also write down the obvious. Yes.
Just to follow up too, does spoken word count?
Oh yeah.
Okay, great.
So I mean, there'll be ideas about events and things. And actually, gosh, I was just reading an article recently about, I forget which of the peer cities it was, had just nominated their youth poet laureate. Might have been Houston, was a spoken word artist. And so I thought that was a really great, cool way to just show that we have examples of other cities who are doing that sort of thought leadership, and we want to keep it as open as possible.
Great, thank you. Great job.
Well, thanks. All right, Joan, I see a hand. Yeah.
I think Mari was before me.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see the order. Mari, you want to go ahead?
Oh yeah, no problem. I don't know if you've thought of it right now, but do you know what the eligibility requirements may be for the position?
Yeah, so some of our research has shown us that we could have very specific limitations on that. And as a group, we discussed keeping it as open-ended as possible until we bring in the community feedback. So at the beginning of this month, we met with Councilmember Fletcher and Council Vice President Jenkins one more time. And it was after that point that we did the outreach. So it's pretty fresh. It's, probably about 10 days. So we've been collecting a few responses. And we really wanted to leave some breathing room for the definitions of that and keep eligibility requirements as open as possible. Like, you can submit a work and you can fill out a full resume here, but your main criteria is going to be, that you live in the city of Minneapolis, and then we're gonna leave it to the selection panel to review what you put in to the project. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's totally cool. Also, just follow up, then when would the youth poet laureate age requirement end, and when do you then become the adult poet laureate? If that makes sense. How
Right.
youth?
Thank you. Yeah, we kind of talked around that a little bit with starting in April, because then it would be like an end of a term would be right before if someone was in school and perhaps moving to another city, right? It could sync up with that if someone was, say in high school. For me, there's a lot of youth poet laureates that are out there right now that are between 18 and 20. So there's no specific age requirement on that. We could certainly discuss putting a stamp on it in the future. And so I think that's a continued conversation. One other item to mention is that we were thinking a poet laureate would be serving a 2-year term. The second year of that would be the guiding mentorship for the youth poet laureate. So for the first year, since it's a brand new project, we really want to leave a little bit of wiggle room, some feeler space for gaining of bearings, if you will, before we would throw into the position mentor-mentee relationship. So it'd be first year, figure out what you want to do for your own poetry work events and work with partner organizations. Year 2, we would ask that you add in that mentorship of the youth poet laureate. And then also another third component would be that you could be consulted for the next year after, so that the new incoming poet laureate has some sort of relational shepherding process of how it had worked before, just to try to lay some firm groundwork. Great questions though, thank you, yes. Joan, you have a hand, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I really appreciate the cadence and the way that this project has been evolving. And I'm most appreciative of the intentional delay in defining all of the decisions to leave space for community to be helpful with that. I mean, it is a more difficult way to work sometimes, and it takes a little bit longer, but it is so critical to have that inclusive decision making before everything is buttoned up and figured out. Then we ask the community to participate, and it's okay, I don't even know what this is. I don't really care about it. It's just something that you're doing, whatever, it's such a richer experience. So I just want to congratulate those of you who have been leading this and that you've made those very conscious decisions to leave decision-making room about what the specifics really will be. And so just again, thank you. And thanks for the heavy lift, because I know that this particular initiative has been spoken about the entire time that I've been on the commission, and I believe that it predates my tenure as well. So I am exceedingly proud of this group to have moved it forward in these very uncertain times. So just great job.
Thanks. It's been a really satisfying process to have such great commissioners on board and be able to have these conversations. So cross your fingers, please. Outreach to any other friends. Let more community members know, because we need more voices to impact these drafts too. And you are those voices. If you have something else, we had some great questions here just to start off the conversation, but it can continue beyond this meeting. Please feel free to email me anytime. Our next step is going to be a requested action just to approve the plan for the Poet Laureate work group. Just saying, I've taken a look at these documents and it seems like we're on the right track. We really want to just have some formalization of MAC support, so that when we're ready to move forward with the community, we can, perhaps even use that in our public outreach to come to say, MAC formalized this work plan as A-okay to move forward and keep going strong. So that's what we're looking for next. Joan, you'll have to guide me through the formal actions for making motions and whatnot.
It is no problem. I have the script right here and I'm happy to do it. Jackie, you have your hand up?
I just wanted to mention that we also are going to probably be putting together a survey so that in case it is a time constraint for community members to give input, that they could give it in different forms. So it's about different ways of being able to solicit community support for this and any sort of comments they would have. So, yeah.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the plan for the Poet Laureate work group?
So moved.
Okay, great. We have a proper motion before us. Is there any other discussion before the clerk call? Oh, I'm sorry. Can I get a second? My apologies.
Second.
Thank you. Okay. We have a proper motion before us. Is there any discussion before the clerk calls the roll? All right, let's do this. Tina Beach.
Commissioner Aylesworth,
Aye.
Commissioner Bedbury,
Aye.
Commissioner Brinkman,
Aye.
Commissioner Mansfield,
Aye.
Commissioner Mabius,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Swinton,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
and Commissioner Vorderbruggen.
Aye. So moved. Congratulations, friends. Good job. Okay, moving on. Our next item is the survey results summary, and I admit that I had a little bit busier of a day today than I had expected, and so I wasn't able to aggregate the survey answers. I would like to be able to just distribute the document. I have dropped it all in without your names, and just would love for everyone to just skim over it. But if anyone feels any sensitivity to that, it's not my way of escaping doing a little bit extra work. I'm totally happy to like grab key points out of what you provided. And I'm just gonna wait to do that until tomorrow or whatever that's gonna manifest as. And I just wanna really welcome you to let me know if you have any reservations about your, what you submitted for feedback about it being, shared with the rest of the commission just anonymously. So I think that's just something that you can let me know, and so that I'm not putting anyone on the spot right at this moment. And I apologize that I wasn't able to bring more information, but really the reason why we and the executive committee wished to get that information from you in kind of in a hurry is because of the next item on our agenda. So is there any other comments or questions about the survey? I think we are almost at 100% participation, so I think there's just I might be able to get us to 100%. I think I will. So, but we're very, very close. So thank you everybody who took the time to do that. It is of great value to understand where you're at right now and the opportunities you can see and all of the things that you shared. Okay, the next item is, drum roll, please. I'm just kidding. A proposed cadence for the priorities for the 2022 work plan process. Yay, it's that time of year. It's Q4. Let's make a plan. Let's figure out what we're going to do. And we've got some great meat to work with. That's probably not the best way to quip that, but I'm just going to have you look at the agenda and kind of see. I kind of articulated this maybe a little bit more than I sort of needed to, but because it is going to be moving us through at a pretty ambitious pace, I just want to make sure that we are aligned. I think that looking at these survey results is an important next step before we move forward with starting to imagine what our work plan is going to look like for 2022. I also recommend that everybody take a look at the 2021 work plan and just ask yourself what worked, what didn't, what on there maybe didn't happen for whatever reasons and maybe could happen in 2022. But I think one of the most important priorities that we discussed, I think kind of at length, honestly, both in the policy subcommittee and the executive committee, was that we really wish to be proactively involved in the development of the new department. And I want to just mention that We did receive some information from Gulgun. She is on leave at the moment, so she wasn't able to join us this evening. That there are some pretty serious implications that are going to affect us. We do not know exactly what the budget is going to be for the new department. There is a $300,000 proposed budget line today that is intended to pay for 2 staff people. And correct me if I'm wrong, you guys, that were part of this conversation. There's going to be negotiations about the department's budget, but basically at the moment, it's a bit concerning. It's a bit concerning that if there isn't a budget for a department, then there isn't a department. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that's just they just need to go together. So even though the very difficult work of getting the ordinance passed happened, and I really appreciate how hard everybody pushed on that, we're far from done right now. We're far from being at a place where we can say, we did it, it's functional, it's funded, it's understood. The MAC is understood about how we operate. I mean, there's just going to be so much thinking that really needs to go into this. And I do believe that, and it really feels to us on the executive committee, and I'm really happy to discuss this with you all, but it feels like this is the significant lift for 2022, is providing the capacity, the thought leadership, the access and engagement, and the advocacy to realize this department of art and cultural affairs. So, and it just makes sense with what we are appointed and the way in which we are intended to serve our community as appointed commissioners. So I give some examples, weaving the development of the new department into our goals. Some examples include requesting funding for a strategic planning process with an outside facilitator so that work is not developed in a vacuum as it has been in the past, that we can have kind of a fair and balanced process that's inclusive, that we potentially commit to leading some community engagement and actually asking the public, what do you need? What do you want? What does this department look like? What are your priorities? What do you think we need to care about the most, based on what we know? And then also to considering how public art is weaved within the new department, right? Like we were gonna embark on some policy work within all of our public art programming. So what does that end up looking like? And maybe we don't figure it all, all the answers out now, but is it possible for us to get to December with a plan, even though there are many gray areas yet, to just assert our leadership in this way? So any questions or comments? It's not to say that we wouldn't still, have the access group sort of bringing on guest speakers and doing some of this other work that you've already built a lot of momentum for example, or, some of the other things that I think the other subcommittees have been focused on. But I do think that prioritizing the new department and the development of it and our role in it is just really something that every single subcommittee should show up with for 2022. So any comments, and then I'll just move, if not, I can move on to kind of the proposed timeline for this work. Okay, I don't see any hands. Okay, so November 8th is the deadline for a draft of your 2022 work plan for your subcommittee, which is, it's really moving fast, and I'm not sure if you all have meetings scheduled to discuss this. It would be nice if it could be the subject of whatever your next meeting is scheduled for. And if you don't, I'll need to know, and so that we can rejigger our timeline. We will discuss the draft, and it's important that it's a draft. So just understand that a draft means a draft. It's like, these are the things that we're thinking of proposing for 2022. And it's not, it's intended to be discussed. So we would discuss these drafts when we meet as an executive committee. So I just want to make sure that people have an opportunity to make suggestions or come together in whatever way is easiest for you, be it email, thread, be it, an extra special meeting, whatever it is. On the 9th, we will discuss an executive, these work plan drafts, and sort of try to chip away and get them a little bit more refined, because we will have members from each of those groups representing those drafts. And then on the 10th, we are going to send out an email and say, hey, everybody, it's time to make another meeting with your elected, with your city council member, and they need to see our draft 2022 work plan, and we need to get their feedback. So that is one of the key ways that we can socialize our role, that we can also prioritize our electeds' agendas. And yes, I realize that we will be fresh off the heels of an election, so it may be awkward, right? And maybe, you know, maybe we get some people's feedback and maybe we don't get everyone's feedback, but whatever it is, we need to try. We also need to get the feedback from staff and from the interim director, as well as I would think CPED's director as well. Like, I think if we can, so there'll be some assignments going around and I'll probably heavy lift on some of this myself. And then the next item is just at the November 20th general MAC meeting, our next meeting, we're going to look at the work plans and we're going to discuss it as a group. So hopefully by then we will have given it enough thought that we feel pretty good about it. We might be able to share some of the feedback we have received. And then by December 6th, and I'm sorry, I know this is like deadline. But by December 6th, we would like to see the final draft. So we would like really everyone to feel as good as they can feel about what it is that we are going to propose for 2022 so that we can discuss that in our December executive committee meeting, with the hope that all of this comes together, which probably there will be some hiccups, and we are able to adopt our 2022 work plan at our December meeting and start fresh in January. But there are some unknowns that could throw us some curveballs. And with that, I will ask Commissioner Thompson to go ahead.
Sorry, just a point. The November MAC meeting is November 17th. Just since we're being clear about dates here.
Thank you. I kind of knew that I might have screwed up one of those dates. So thanks.
Just in case people are really focusing on these dates. And then executive committee on December 7th, right? Is that what you said? Yep. Okay. All right.
Thank you. Thanks. We'll make that correction too and can send out this timeline again. Any other questions, discussion? Slow this train down, Joan. It's all good. Okay. All right, cool. Awesome. I think that this is actually a really exciting part of the work that we do, is like thinking about like what we want to really dig our heels into. And I love that we've gotten to this place where our subcommittees are doing really great work and are pretty gelled and aligned, even though we're small and mighty. Like, I'm appreciative that this is feeling to be a little bit more of a matured process now, which is nice. Any other questions? Comments? Okay, moving on. Yay. ALT updates. I kind of just gave you the executive committee's update, to be honest. This was a large part of our focus. So we also we haven't really gotten to the bottom of like what our retreat and when our retreat will be. And that's still a little bit of a question mark because we were very much focusing on making sure that we had this process sort of figured out and time and dates, and then also the priorities. So there's a little more work for me to do, admittedly. And so I will have more information for you, but I will say that it does feel as if this retreat will likely be an executive committee level retreat, bringing any considerations that the ALT subcommittees wish for us to focus on, of course. And of course, anyone is welcome to come to any executive meeting, for that matter, if you're interested. So I think the General Commission is a little bit off the hook with the retreat, and that we will focus it for execs. So we just got to give it a little bit more thought. Any questions about that? Okay, moving on to updates from Policy and Advocacy.
Yeah, I think actually a lot of the policy and advocacy highlights were covered in your presentation too, Joan. I'd just like to, call out that some of those items under the proposed cadence, things like potentially bringing in an outside facilitator to do some strategic planning and trying to advocate for financing for that, are, we're brainstorming ways that we can help with the fruition of the new department in the best ways that MAC is able. So that was a large part of our conversation. I think it's prudent to also clarify when we say that there's, right now in the budget, it's not through the markup process, but $300,000 for the budget for 2 staff members. I'd like to clarify that that does not include a director position. 2 staff members, and they're working on a job description right now for what a director would be, but that's not currently financed for. So, you know, I'm really curious to see as this process evolved. I'm very new to the work in budgeting, so Mary, feel free to jump in if you want to say any more qualifying statements around that. But I think that was helpful for me to get a framework on where we're at.
So I received a clarification this week that the plan is for one of the 2 positions to be the director. I believe the vision is to bring the director on and then have the director manage the change, right? So I think that's, you know, things could change and those are plans at a staff level, but I think that, you know, the plan is that one of the positions is a creative city making position and one of the positions is a director position.
Thanks, that's a really helpful clarification too. So anything else that you want to note, Mary, about the transition plan as it stands right now? Did you have any other insight into the job description if we know it will be financing a director role?
I have not seen the job description. I have heard that they are working on the job description. I think, you know, I don't know if all the commissioners know that Danielle Shelton-Walsack, who was the person really managing this project, has left the city for another position. And so I'm aware that city leadership is meeting about this project, and it will probably carry on without her. But there's also that kind of transition going on. It's not uncommon for staff to start leaving around the time of an election. So, and I think the other thing I would just say is, I know there's some deep concerns about the budget, and but I'm not against advocating for more of a budget, but knowing the way city bureaucracy moves, it's going to take a year to do the transition. And so a new department wouldn't be in a position where they could launch an enormous amount of programming and transfer staff, create a whole bunch of new job descriptions, move the money around in the financial system, imagine enormous weights of city bureaucracy that have to be carried around for a while.
I think that's good feedback as we think about how we can intersect with this process. I feel like our ability to provide capacity hopefully is a welcome situation for staff and council members alike. That feels like a very natural use of our gifts and abilities and our roles. So I just, I think that is something to think about, though, that this will very much be like a development year, a year of gaining an understanding for what's possible and really making sure that we're at the table and that the voices that we think are important to be at the table are there as well. So thank you. Anything else, Lana, that you want to share about policy updates?
Nope, Lucy, feel free to jump in if I missed anything, but I think that covers where we were at.
No, great job. No edits.
All right. Any questions, comments? All right, moving on. Access and Engagement Committee updates.
Yeah, I'm gonna give those. So we continue to work on our guest speakers, and keeping an ear out for when we're gonna be in person again, because that'll kind of change the look of that part of the work. We are, I think, slated to have the Capri Theater come join us for November, which is really exciting. And I do want to just touch base, knowing how much like work planning is going to be a priority for November, just like what maybe we can just really have like a time thing or just consideration around that. We delivered a survey out to artists that have had experience working with the city of Minneapolis. We received 13 replies, which it was a pretty tight turnaround. So we were pretty happy with that number and the quality of information that was delivered in the surveys. And the fact that 11 of the 13 people said that they would be somewhat interested or very or extremely interested in talking to us more in depth. So we are taking those interests and we're going and the information and feedback and input that we received, and we're going to create an artist panel. So something else along with this Poet Laureate project that has been talked about for many years. So we're getting closer, which is really exciting. I believe that work is going to be moved to January 2022 in order to give these work plans and these tasks that are very important their own time and consideration, especially through this kind of end of the calendar period that we're entering. We are also planning for the December meeting to have about 45 minutes of our meeting be celebratory. And so we are working on some kind of artistic inclusion and some fun. We're working on fun, we're working on celebration, we're working on art being a heavy part of that 45 minutes of our end of the year meeting. So we're looking to celebrate and we're looking to kind of bring in more of that community energy into the December meeting. Anybody else have anything to add?
And I have to say, thank you. This is so exciting. So the one thing I have to say is that I think if we get our work done, like anything, like if we get our work plans together and we can have that on the agenda and approve it, then we can like celebrate and like we won't need to use all this time. I mean, maybe things will arise between now and then, and so I can't guarantee that, but I think it would be really cool if it was like, hey, we did it. We did 2021 is wrap, Cheers.
Yeah.
I would love to feel that way to end out the year. So, and I'm sure you all would too. So thank you for putting so much thought into making sure that we celebrate our accomplishments and have like, that we get arty. Chuck?
Yeah, I just want to add, thank you, Crystal. I just want to add that we will be reaching out to Mary in her office on the fun, because Mary is synonymous with fun. So we're going to be tapping into Mary for some fun ideas, just FYI.
Very nice, very nice. Great. Any other comments, questions for Access? Awesome. That's a lot of happiness. Great. And then the Public Art Committee. So I had asked Mary, so first of all, as far as the 2022 work plan development, more to come, you guys. I think that Mary and David and Mari and I do need to maybe think about trying to figure out a time that we can get together to chat about this a little bit, because our meetings are the Public Art Advisory Council. So, but there's been a lot of decisions that have been made very recently, and I asked Mary to prepare a short presentation for us about public art, big decisions, and big thanks to the advisory committee and to the commissioners that serve in that capacity. There was a tremendously heavy lift these past few months, so thank you. Mary, go ahead.
So the panel basically decided how we're going to spend the percent for art for the next couple of years in the last couple of months. And that happens by choosing locations for art. And so the focus of project selection is integrating the art into what the city's already building, so city infrastructure. And also focuses on sites that are publicly accessible. So we generally receive proposals from departments. This year, as we brought some artists on board to collaborate with those departments and submit proposals with the departments. And so we had Cowley Tao working with the Property Services Department, which is the department that builds buildings. We had Witsi Ahsoka working with the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board. And we had Zoe Snell and Aaron Marks working with Public Works. They had 2 artists because they have a lot of projects. And then I submitted some projects to the panel also for consideration for additional funds on existing projects. Oops. So there were a total of 16 projects submitted. 9 were from Public Works, 3 were building related, and 4 were for parks. And the panel funded 6 projects, including 2 existing projects. The 2 existing projects were the John Biggers Seed Project and the Portable Collection, which were trying to deaccession and conserve and reinstall, and hopefully pick some new pieces as well. So the 4 new projects they picked were the Upper Harbor Terminal, the North Commons Park, the East Phillips Park, and the High Lake Interchange. The areas of green on the map are areas of concentrated poverty, and we always look at the decisions of lots of folks in the city related to those areas in the city, and you can see all 4 are in areas of concentrated poverty. Also, East Phillips Park is serves the indigenous community a lot. The High Lake Interchange is adjacent to a lot of the buildings that burned down in the city in the past year. North Commons Park is an important park in North Minneapolis that needs a lot of attention. And Upper Harbor is this huge project that the city is working on. And my guess is that the panel will continue to fund Upper Park and give Upper Harbor additional funds in the future. This is my last slide, but I just wanted to show you some images and tell you the dollars. So the panel funded North Commons Park and East Phillips Park at the level of $200,000. And they funded Hiawatha Lake, which is you can see from these images, a desperate site, a desperately ugly and needy site in the city. They threw a big chunk of money at that because they really care about it and want to really transform it, and hope in some ways we could integrate lighting into it to get some light in that underbridge environment. So they gave it $450,000. And then the Upper Harbor railing, which is actually a project that Juxtaposition has been conceiving for as part of the design team for Upper Harbor, which is about 150-foot railing along this industrial site. And it's a regular railing that's going to get built, but they funded $219,000 to integrate art elements into that. They also gave us or provided an additional $400,000 for us to wrap up the John Biggers Seed Project, which we've been doing my entire adult life. And is really an important bridge crossing 94 at Olson Memorial Highway, and $88,000 for the framing and conservation and new commissions for the portable collection. So they made some great decisions, in my opinion. I'm going to be so excited to be working on all of these projects in the coming years. And I think with the existing projects we have underway, we have a really great portfolio of commissions happening in a really broad range of communities in the city.
Thank you for putting this together. It is these are tremendous opportunities. Like this is some real money for artists in our community to really do some big, impressive, bold work. And so thank you, Mary, for stewarding this process. And again, to the commissioners who are serving to review all of these. I know that the discussions took 2 months because there was just such an intense level of engagement with the artists that did submit, and there were really great proposals. So I mean, this is just a great source of pride as well, and just really good and thoughtful work. And I'm really glad that everybody put as much time as they put into it, and that these are the outcomes we're looking at. It's amazing. Does anybody have any comments or questions or feedback they'd like to provide? Well, wow. Okay, look at us, you guys.
I do, Joan, actually. I have my hand up.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say thanks, Mary. I had asked for this too, because just especially as a new commissioner, just to better understand the program and see the map is really helpful. So thanks for putting that together. Really, really helpful. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah, and Mary too, it's interesting because I think that, like, I'm looking at this and I'm saying this also looks like potentially could benefit from some capacity. So something to think about, right? Like, I know that these budgets include project management, but that's a process in of itself.
So project management is actually not included in these dollar amounts.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow.
This is pretty much, there might, for the most part, this would be almost the size of the commission. We might take a little off the top of each of them for some miscellaneous, or not miscellaneous, like for East Phillips, we might take some money off the top to have some Indigenous advisors on the project or something like that. But for the most part, this is nearly the size of the commission.
That's incredible. And I would also say too, like, something just to think about. I know that you have made great strides with, with our help in diversifying that project management staff opportunity. And I know that I can speak from experience, and not with projects necessarily like these, but that project management for these types of projects is a highly complicated and very difficult task, and requires a pretty specific skill set to be able to speak the language of transportation and engineering and also artist management. And I think that they're, so another way that we might be able to be helpful is as these opportunities start to develop and move forward, how can we be helpful in ensuring that we have a diverse and inclusionary process for the project management as well as the artists, as well as, making sure that Mary isn't surrounded by, like, project managers and artists who do not have experience. Like, there is a balance to that is sensitive. So, but I think it deserves to be discussed, and that we could potentially be helpful with that. And that could be cool. So that might be something that the Public Art Advisory Committee or ALT group of us could just think about when we talk to each other about what our goals might be for 2022. And maybe that even like is something where we partner with Access a little bit or whatever. So sorry to think out loud about that, but it's just a lot of opportunity, and it's a lot of jobs, and that's awesome. So yeah, anything else? Any other feedback? Any other contributions? All right. With that, is there any new business? I apologize. Is there anything that we didn't cover that anyone wanted to bring forward? All right. Yes. Okay. With that, we have completed all the items on the agenda for this meeting. I will ask members and staff if there are any other matters to come before this meeting. If not, and without objection, I will declare this meeting adjourned. Our next meeting, I apologize, I don't have that date written down. Hopefully you have it on your calendars. Thank you, everyone. Have a blessed evening, and thank you again for all your time and your service. Good night.